The High Council fell silent when Ambassador Veyra Thal'shan raised her hand, not to speak, but to point directly at the human standing in the petitioner's circle. Him, she said. I will take him. Marcus Cole had been on Therynus Prime for 11 days. 11 days of being shuffled between holding facilities, questioned about Earth's intentions, and treated like a stray animal that had wandered into a palace. The Theryn Dominion hadn't requested a human diplomat. They'd intercepted his damaged survey vessel near their border, and decided he was either a spy or a problem. Neither category came with comfortable accommodations. The council chamber stretched upward like the inside of a crystalline cathedral, its walls embedded with living light that shifted with the mood of its occupants. Right now, that light pulsed an agitated amber. 12 high councilors sat in ascending tiers, their silver-skinned forms draped in ceremonial robes that seemed to flow like liquid metal. At the apex sat the empty throne of the Dominion's ruler, the ascendant matriarch, who had not appeared for this session. Ambassador Veyra occupied the seat just below that empty throne. Her position marked her as the matriarch's heir, the crown daughter, though Marcus had learned that title carried complications he didn't fully understand. Your Grace, Councillor Rethan said, his voice carrying the particular tone of someone addressing a superior they privately despised. The human is a territorial matter. The Border Commission will determine his disposition. The Border Commission has failed to determine anything in 11 rotations. Veyra's voice was cool, precise. Meanwhile, his presence becomes a diplomatic incident with each passing cycle. Earth has sent 17 formal inquiries. The Galactic Compact has begun asking questions. Then execute him and claim ignorance, another councillor suggested. Humans are fragile. Accidents happen. Marcus felt his stomach drop, but he kept his face neutral. He'd learned that much in his time here. The Theryn read micro-expressions like text, and showing fear was an invitation to exploitation. Execute him? Veyra's silver eyes fixed on the councillor who had spoken. And when Earth demands answers? When they trace his vessel's last signal to our space? The humans are primitive, councillor this, but they are tenacious. They have spent 3 centuries clawing their way from their home system to the galactic stage. They do not forget their dead. What would you propose then? Rethan asked. Veyra rose from her seat. She was tall, even for a Theryn, easily 7 feet, with the characteristic silver-blue skin and eyes that held no pupils, only swirling depths of metallic light. Her hair, if it could be called that, fell in strands of living crystal that chimed softly as she moved. The Dominion requires a human cultural liaison, she said. Someone to prepare us for inevitable formal contact with Earth. This one has education in xenoanthropology. His vessel's records confirm it. He was studying pre-contact species when he strayed into our territory. A convenient interpretation of espionage, Dis muttered. I was studying migration patterns of void whales, Marcus said, breaking his silence. They don't respect political boundaries. Neither did my navigation system, apparently. Several councillors reacted to his interjection with visible distaste. Petitioners did not speak unless directly addressed. But Veyra's expression shifted. Something that might have been amusement flickered in those metallic eyes. You see, he has spirit. That will be useful. The crown daughter cannot simply claim a foreign national as personal property, Rethan said. There are protocols. I invoke the right of patronage. Veyra's words cut through the chamber like a blade. The living light in the walls flickered to a deep, startled blue. Silence stretched. Marcus didn't know what the right of patronage meant, but from the reactions around him, it was significant. Several councillors exchanged glances. Rethan's jaw tightened. Your Grace, an older female councillor said carefully, the right of patronage has not been invoked in 4 generations. It is an extreme measure. These are extreme circumstances. I am within my rights. The matriarch will have to approve. My mother approved this morning. Veyra produced a small crystal from within her robes. It pulsed with inner light. Her seal is encoded. You may verify it. The crystal was passed among the councillors. One by one, their objections died. Marcus watched this unfold with the growing awareness that his fate had been decided before he'd even entered this chamber. Whatever game was being played here, he was a piece, not a player. Finally, Rethan set the crystal down with exaggerated care. Very well. The human is yours, crown daughter. We trust you know what you're doing. I always do, councillor. Veyra descended the steps toward Marcus. Up close, she was even more imposing, and yet there was something in her bearing that seemed tired, worn, back, as if the perfect composure was a mask she'd been wearing too long. She stopped before him, looking down from her considerable height. Marcus Cole of Earth, she said formally. You are now under my protection. You will reside in my household, learn our ways, and serve as a bridge between our peoples. In exchange, I guarantee your safety, your dignity, and eventual passage home when relations are formalized. And if I refuse? Her silver eyes held his. Then you return to the Border Commission's custody. I believe, Counselor, this was suggesting execution, when you put it that way. Marcus managed a thin smile. I accept your generous offer, Your Grace. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, perhaps, that he could find humor in this moment. Good, she said. Come. We have much to discuss, and I prefer to do it away from listening ears. As she led him from the chamber, Marcus heard Rethan's voice carry after them. The crown daughter collects another stray. Perhaps this one will last longer than the others. Veyra's stride didn't falter, but Marcus saw her crystalline hair dim slightly. The Theryn equivalent, he would later learn, of a flinch. The crown daughter's residence was not what Marcus expected. He'd anticipated cold grandeur, more of the crystalline cathedral aesthetic that dominated Theryn architecture. Instead, the private quarters were warm, softer. The wall still held living light, but here it glowed in gentle ambers and golds. Actual fabric draped the furniture, a rarity in Theryn design, he'd noticed. Plants from a dozen worlds filled alcoves and hung from supports, creating an almost garden-like atmosphere. You may speak freely here, Veyra said, removing her ceremonial outer robe. Beneath it, she wore simpler clothing, still elegant, but less formal. My chambers are shielded from council surveillance. That's reassuring. Marcus looked around. And concerning. Why does a crown daughter need to hide from her own government? Because a crown daughter who cannot ensure her own privacy is a crown daughter who will not survive long. She gestured to a seating area. Sit. You must have questions. Marcus sat. The furniture was designed for Theryn proportions, making him feel like a child in an adult's chair. Just a few. Starting with, what exactly did you just do back there? And why? Veyra poured a dark liquid from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses. She handed one to Marcus. It smelled faintly of honey and something sharper. I claimed you under an ancient law that grants high nobility the right to take foreign nationals under personal protection. It was originally designed for refugees from conquered peoples. Using it for a human from an uncontacted civilization is odd. Unprecedented. She took her own seat across from him. As for why, you are a political problem, Marcus Cole. Your presence has been weaponized by factions within the council who wish to embarrass my mother, and by extension, me. By claiming you, I remove that weapon from their hands. So I am still a political piece. Just on a different board. Yes. She met his eyes directly. I will not insult you with pretty lies. You are useful to me. But useful does not mean disposable. The right of patronage binds me to certain obligations. Your safety, your dignity, your eventual freedom. These are not gifts I can revoke at will. They are duties I have sworn. Marcus sipped the drink. It was sweet, with a warm burn that reminded him of good whiskey. And what's expected of me? Learn, observe. Help me understand your people. She paused. When formal contact comes, and it will, within a year at most, I intend to be the one who brokers it. That will require a human perspective I can trust. Trust is a strong word for someone you just met. Trust is built, not assumed. I am giving us time to build it. Her crystalline hair chimed softly. You have survived 11 days in Border Commission custody without breaking, without giving them useful intelligence, without begging or threatening. That suggests either remarkable training or remarkable character. I am betting on the latter. Marcus set down his glass. Can I ask you something? You may ask anything. I may not always answer. That counselor, Rethan, he said something about others. Strays who didn't last. What did he mean? Veyra's expression didn't change, but the light in the walls flickered, just for a moment, to a cooler shade. I've taken others under protection before, she said quietly. Political refugees. Escaped prisoners. Those with nowhere else to go. Not all of them survived the experience. You lost them. Some died. Some chose to leave, despite the dangers. Some were taken from me despite my efforts. Her voice remained steady, but something underneath it had cracked. The council believes it makes me weak, this impulse to protect those who have no other shield. They use it against me. But you keep doing it. Yes. Why? For a long moment, Veyra didn't answer. She stared into her glass as if the dark liquid held answers. Because someone should, she finally said. Because power without purpose is merely cruelty. Because... She stopped, shook her head. These are not questions for our first conversation. You should rest. Tomorrow I will begin your education in Theryn culture. It will be extensive. Marcus recognized a dismissal. But he also recognized something else, a loneliness that echoed his own. He'd been alone for 3 years now, since the accident that had killed his crew and left him the sole survivor of the G Endeavor. He'd taken the Void Whale survey mission, because being alone in deep space felt more honest than pretending to belong among people who saw him as a ghost. Your Grace, he said, standing. I was her political problem. She made me her personal one. That's what you did today. Turned a political inconvenience into a personal burden. I want you to know. I intend to be worth the trouble. Veyra looked up at him, and for just a moment, the mask slipped. He saw exhaustion, and hope, and a fear she would never admit aloud. I believe you will be, Marcus Cole, she said softly. I believe you will be. 3 weeks into his education, Marcus began to understand why the Theryn Dominion had survived 10,000 years. They were not merely powerful. They were patient. Every interaction was layered with meaning. Words, gestures, the very rhythm of speech all carried weight. Status determined everything. Who spoke first, who sat higher, who was served which foods and in what order. And beneath that rigid hierarchy lay a complex web of obligation and alliance that could shift with a single misspoken word. You flinched, Veyra said, pausing the holographic display. They were in her study, reviewing recordings of diplomatic functions so Marcus could learn to read Theryn body language. When Counselor This gestured with her third hand, she made a cutting motion toward the ambassador from Velketh. I assumed it was hostile. It was a compliment. In formal settings, the third hand blade gesture indicates respect for a worthy opponent. Veyra manipulated the display, slowing the moment. See how her fingers remain curved, not extended? Extension would indicate genuine threat. The curve acknowledges the ambassador's skill, while establishing that This considers herself superior. Marcus rubbed his forehead. So she was saying, I respect you, but I could take you, in essence. The ambassador's response. Veyra advanced the recording. The slight tilt of her head and the flash of her secondary eyelids indicates she accepts the assessment but reserves judgment. That's a lot of meaning for a half-second gesture. Now, we are an old people, Marcus. We have had time to develop nuance. A hint of amusement touched her voice. It took me 40 years to master court communication. You have perhaps 40 days before you must attend a formal function at my side. We should focus on essentials. They worked through the afternoon, breaking only when a servant brought refreshments. Marcus had noticed that Veyra's household staff were different from those he'd encountered elsewhere. They moved with less fear, spoke more freely, and occasionally even offered opinions without being asked. You treat them differently, he said during a break. Your staff, they're not as terrified? Veyra's crystalline hair chimed with what he'd learned to recognize as amusement. No, fear is inefficient. A servant who dreads punishment makes mistakes. One who understands they are valued performs with excellence. She paused. This is considered a radical philosophy in some circles. Let me guess. Counselor Rethin's household runs on fear. Rethin's household runs on terror. His servants have a mortality rate 17% higher than the court average. Her voice hardened. He considers it proper discipline, and no one stops him? Stop a high counselor from disciplining his own property? That would violate a dozen traditions. Veyra's tone was bitter. The Dominion is ancient, Marcus. Ancient and calcified. Change comes slowly, if at all. Before Marcus could respond, a chime sounded. Veyra's expression shifted instantly, the openness she'd shown him vanishing behind the mask of the crown daughter. Enter, she called. The door opened to admit a Theryn male, older, with the deeper silver of advanced years coloring his skin. His robes marked him as high-ranking, though not a counselor. Your Grace. He bowed precisely. The matriarch requests your presence, and that of your ward. Veyra stood. Now? Immediately, Your Grace. Marcus caught the tension in her posture. Subtle, but there. Is something wrong? My mother does not summon without purpose. Veyra moved toward the door, then paused. Stay close to me. Speak only if directly addressed. And Marcus. She met his eyes. Do not show fear. Whatever happens. The ascendant matriarch Veyra Thal'shan was dying. Marcus saw it the moment they entered her chambers. The living light in the walls flickered erratically. The air held a strange scent, sweet and metallic, like flowers and old blood. And the figure on the elevated platform, surrounded by attendants and medical equipment, bore little resemblance to the imposing ruler he'd seen in recordings. She was thin, terribly thin, her silver skin stretched over bones that seemed too prominent. Her crystalline hair had lost its luster, hanging limp and dull. But her eyes, Those metallic pools of swirling light remained sharp. Alert. Dot. They fixed on Veyra with an intensity that made Marcus want to step back. Daughter, Tori. Her voice was stronger than her appearance suggested. You've brought your human, as you requested, Mother. Veyra's voice was controlled, but Marcus heard the strain beneath it. He has been cooperative. His education progresses well. I'm not interested in his education. The matriarch's gaze shifted to Marcus. Come closer, human. Let me see what my daughter has found worth protecting. Marcus stepped forward. Veyra made a small motion, concern perhaps, or warning, but didn't stop him. He approached the platform until he stood just below the matriarch's level. Up close, he could see the slight tremor in her hands, the effort it cost her to maintain her upright position. Marcus Cole, she said. Survivor of the survey vessel, Yendiver. Sole living member of a crew of 12 Daite. 3 years wandering the void alone before straying into our space. You've done your research, Your Majesty. I've done more than that. I've read every report, every interview, every psychological assessment the Border Commission compiled. Her eyes narrowed. They believe you are broken, traumatized by your losses, unstable. Marcus kept his expression neutral. And what do you believe? A smile, thin, almost predatory, crossed her face. I believe you are dangerous, Marcus Cole. Not because you are broken, but because you have survived breaking. That makes you unpredictable. Quiet, Veyra. I'm speaking with your pet. The matriarch leaned forward slightly. My daughter has a weakness for strays. Wounded things she can nurture. It has made her enemies, and cost her allies. The council sees it as proof she is unfit to rule. Perhaps the council is wrong. The words were out before Marcus could stop them. Veyra's sharp intake of breath told him he'd made a mistake. But the matriarch laughed, a dry, rasping sound. You see, Veyra, unpredictable. She studied Marcus with renewed interest. Tell me, human, why do you think compassion makes one unfit to rule? I don't. Marcus held her gaze. I think the opposite. I think leaders who can't see value in the vulnerable are the ones truly unfit. They're the ones who break things because they don't understand what they're destroying. Pretty words. But words are wind. Then look at actions. Marcus gestured toward Veyra without turning away from the matriarch. Your daughter claimed me when she could have left me to die. That wasn't weakness, it was strategy. She removed a weapon from her enemy's hands and gained a potential asset in the process. She showed mercy and strength in the same move. The matriarch was silent for a long moment. You defend her, she finally said, after 3 weeks. Why? Marcus considered the question. The honest answer was complicated, gratitude mixed with genuine respect, and something else he wasn't ready to name. Because she treated me like a person, he said. Not a problem to be solved or a tool to be used. I spent 11 days being interrogated, threatened, and dismissed. She was the first one who asked what I needed instead of what I could provide. The matriarch's eyes moved to Veyra. Something passed between mother and daughter, a communication Marcus couldn't read. Leave us, the matriarch said suddenly. All of you, except my daughter and the human. The attendants filed out. The medical staff hesitated, but a sharp look from the matriarch sent them retreating. Within moments, the 3 of them were alone. The change was immediate. The matriarch's posture softened. The sharp edge in her voice dulled. Help me down, she said quietly. Veyra moved instantly, supporting her mother as she descended from the platform. Up close, the matriarch seemed smaller, fragile in a way the formal setting had disguised. I am dying, she said matter-of-factly, allowing Veyra to guide her to a sitting area. You knew, of course. The whole court knows, though they pretend otherwise. 6 months, perhaps less. Mother, Veyra's voice cracked. Hush. We don't have time for sentiment. The matriarch settled into her seat with a sigh of relief. When I die, he will face a succession challenge. Rethan has been building alliances for years. He believes he can install his daughter as matriarch and rule through her. I know. Do you know he plans to use the human against you? The matriarch's eyes found Marcus. The right of patronage is unbreakable, but there are interpretations. If he can prove you're unfit to hold the responsibility, the bond transfers to the next highest authority. That would be the council itself. Marcus felt cold. He'd use me as a test case. Prove she can't protect me, and it undermines her entire position. You understand quickly. The matriarch actually smiled. My daughter chose well. What would you have me do, Mother? Veyra asked. Abandon him? That's what they expect. No. Protect him. Publicly, obviously, extravagantly. The matriarch reached out, touching her daughter's face with trembling fingers. Make them understand that your compassion is not weakness. It is strategy. It is strength. Show them what I was never brave enough to show, that the old ways are not the only ways. Mother, you are better than me, Veyra. You always have been. I ruled through fear because it was easier. You have the courage to try something else. The matriarch's voice wavered. Do not let them break you. Veyra caught her mother's hand, pressing it against her cheek. For a moment, the two of them were simply mother and daughter. No crowns, no politics, no dying. Marcus looked away, feeling like an intruder. Human. Gah. The matriarch's voice drew him back. My daughter has placed her future in your hands. Do you understand what that means? I'm beginning to. See that you continue to understand. She has precious few she can trust. If you prove worthy of that trust. She paused, gathering strength. If you prove worthy, you may find that humans have more of a future in the Dominion than anyone expects. Before Marcus could respond, the doors opened. Medical staff rushed in, alerted by some monitoring system to the matriarch's declining vitals. The moment of vulnerability vanished as instantly as it had appeared. As attendants swarmed around her mother, Veyra caught Marcus's arm. Come, she said quietly. We should go. They walked in silence back to her quarters. Only when the doors closed behind them did Veyra's composure finally crack. She didn't sob. She didn't collapse. She simply stood, perfectly still, as her crystalline hair dimmed to near darkness and a single tear of liquid silver traced down her cheek. Marcus didn't speak. He didn't offer meaningless comfort. He simply moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel his presence, far enough to give her space. After a long moment, Veyra spoke. Thank you, she said softly, for what you said to her. About me. I meant it. I know. She turned to look at him, silver eyes wet. That's why it mattered. They stood together in silence as the living light slowly warmed around them. The funeral was 3 months later. Marcus stood in the great hall of the Crystal Throne, one of thousands gathered to witness the passing of an ascendant matriarch. He wore formal Theryn robes, a concession to protocol that had required hours of adjustment to fit his human frame, and stood in the section reserved for noble households. Around him, Veyra's staff formed a protective buffer, their presence a statement as much as a courtesy. The ceremony was beautiful and terrible. The matriarch's body, encased in crystal that would preserve her forever, was lowered into the chamber of ancestors beneath the palace. Her crystalline hair had been removed and divided among her heirs, most of it going to Veyra, who wore it woven into her own strands like threads of memory. Marcus watched Veyra throughout, seeing the iron control she maintained, even as her mother disappeared into the depths. She stood alone at the apex of the mourners, dressed in white that shifted and flowed like living snow, her face a perfect mask of noble grief. The challenge came within hours. The council recognizes Councillor Rethan, the master of protocol announced as the formal session began. The seat of the ascendant matriarch sat empty. None could claim it until the succession was resolved. Rethan rose with exaggerated dignity. I stand before this council with a heavy heart. Our beloved matriarch has joined the ancestors, and we must now ensure her legacy continues through worthy hands. Get to the point, Rethan. Veyra's voice cut through his preamble. You are challenging my succession. Stop performing and make your accusation. A murmur ran through the council. Such directness was unusual, almost scandalously so. I challenge the crown daughter's fitness to rule on the grounds of demonstrated poor judgment and inability to fulfill sacred obligations. Specify. The human. Rethan gestured toward Marcus's position in the gallery. 3 months ago, you invoked the right of patronage to claim a foreign national. In that time, he has been exposed to state secrets, given access to restricted areas, and elevated to a position of influence wholly inappropriate for an alien of no rank or standing. The right of patronage grants me considerable latitude in how I fulfill my obligations, Veyra responded. There is no precedent suggesting I have violated its terms. But there is precedent suggesting you are incapable of fulfilling them. Rethan's smile widened. I present evidence that the human Marcus Cole has been compromised. That his loyalties lie not with his patron, but with Earth's government, specifically with intelligence services who have been using him as an unwitting spy. The council erupted. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't true, couldn't be true, but he saw immediately how Rethan could make it seem true. 3 months of access to Veyra's household. Countless private conversations. Information about Theryn politics that Earth would pay dearly to possess. Produce your evidence, Veyra demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. Rethan nodded to an aide, who activated a holographic display. Images appeared, communication records, intercepted transmissions, what appeared to be coded messages sent from a device registered to Marcus's quarters. These communications were detected by border security over the past month, Rethan explained. Encrypted using Earth protocols, directed toward human space. The content, once decoded, includes detailed information about council voting patterns, military deployments, and, most damningly, the late matriarch's medical condition. This is fabricated, Marcus said, stepping forward despite the restraining hands of Veyra's staff. I've never sent any of those messages. I don't even have access to communications equipment capable of reaching human space. The transmitter was found in your quarters this morning, Rethan said smoothly. Hidden in your personal effects from the Yi endeavor, which you planted there. Serious accusations require serious evidence, human. Rethan turned back to the council. The crown daughter has spent 3 months harboring a spy in her household. She has shared intelligence, granted access, and allowed an enemy agent to observe our most sensitive deliberations. This is not merely poor judgment, it is dereliction of sacred duty. The council will recess to examine this evidence, the master of protocol announced. Veyra's voice rang out, stopping the rising councillors in their seats. I invoke the right of personal challenge. I will answer these accusations now, or not at all. Another murmur, this time shocked. The right of personal challenge was ancient, rarely used, and extremely dangerous. It allowed an accused noble to stake everything on a single defense. If she failed, she would lose not only the succession but her title, her property, and her freedom. Veyra, don't. Marcus started. Silence. Her voice was steel. This is my battle. She descended from her position and walked to the center of the chamber, where the accusatory hologram still flickered with damning evidence. Councillor Rethan presents communication records, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Records allegedly sent from my household to human space. But he neglects to mention several key facts. She manipulated the display, pulling up additional data. First, the encryption protocol used in these messages is military grade. Specifically, the same protocol used by Theryn Border Security for internal communications. Earth has no access to these codes. The display shifted. Second, the timing of these transmissions correlates precisely with moments when both my household and the human were under official surveillance. Moments when I was meeting with my mother. Moments when the human was in formal sessions with documented witnesses. Another shift. Third, the transmitter allegedly found in the human's quarters bears manufacturing marks from the Rethan family's personal weapons foundry. An interesting choice for a human spy smuggling equipment from Earth. The council chamber had gone very quiet. But the most damning evidence against Councillor Rethan's accusation, Veyra continued, is this. She pulled up a final record, a communication log that bore official council seals. 4 days ago, Councillor Rethan sent a private message to Admiral Vethanos of Border Security, requesting access to dormant surveillance equipment from the human's vessel. Equipment that was allegedly destroyed during initial processing. Equipment that, according to Border Security records, never actually existed. Rethan's face had gone pale. Councillor Rethan did not discover a spy in my household, Veyra said, her voice cold. He attempted to create one. When that failed, he fabricated evidence. And when his fabrication is examined by the council's truth readers, as it will be, every deception will become apparent. She turned to face the council directly. I call for immediate examination of all evidence by the Chamber of Truth. I further call for a formal investigation into Councillor Rethan's conduct. And I invoke the right of immediate judgment. If his accusations are found false, I claim the traditional penalty, his seat, his holdings, and his bloodline status for 3 generations. The council sat frozen. Rethan's composure finally cracked. You cannot? The right of immediate judgment requires the challenged party to stake equivalent value. Veyra smiled, a cold, terrible expression that Marcus had never seen on her face. I stake my succession. My title. My bloodline's status for 3 generations. If your evidence proves true, you take everything I am. If it proves false, I take everything you are. The crown daughter's terms are accepted, the master of protocol announced, his voice shaking slightly. Let the Chamber of Truth be summoned. The truth reading took 4 hours. Marcus watched from the gallery as Theryn specialists examined every piece of evidence, interrogated both Veyra and Rethan under techniques that made lying impossible, and traced the communication records back to their actual source. The verdict was unanimous. The accusations against Crown Daughter Veyra Thal'shan are found to be false, the chief truth reader announced. The evidence was fabricated. The conspiracy was planned and executed by Councillor Rethan, with the assistance of 3 co-conspirators within Border Security. The council chamber erupted, not in murmurs this time, but in genuine chaos. The traditional penalty is invoked. The master of protocol called over the noise. Councillor Rethan's seat is forfeit. His holdings revert to the crowned. His bloodline is stripped of noble status for 3 generations. Guards moved forward. Rethan, his face a mask of hatred, didn't resist as they led him away. But as he passed Marcus's position, he stopped. This isn't over, human, he said quietly. You've made yourself a target. The crown daughter may have won today, But she can't protect you forever. Maybe not, Marcus replied. But I don't need forever. I just need long enough to watch you fall. Rethan's eyes widened, surprised perhaps that the human would speak so directly. Then the guards moved him on, and he was gone. That night, Marcus found Veyra in her private garden, a space he hadn't known existed until one of her staff guided him there. She sat on a bench beneath a tree that glowed with soft bioluminescence, her white mourning robes traded for simpler garments. Without the formal trappings, she looked younger, smaller, more vulnerable. You took a terrible risk today, Marcus said, approaching slowly. If the truth readers had found anything, any mistake, any ambiguity, then I would have lost everything. Veyra didn't look up. Yes, I knew the stakes. Why? You could have fought the accusation through normal channels. Taken time. Built a safer defense. Time I don't have. She finally met his eyes. My mother's death created a window. Rethan knew it. If I hadn't crushed his challenge immediately, definitively, others would have followed. I would have spent years fighting accusations while the Dominion crumbled around me. So you gambled. Everything. On the truth being enough. On the truth being enough. She smiled slightly. And on you. Marcus sat beside her. Me? You could have run when Rethan made his accusations. The chaos would have covered your escape. You could have claimed asylum with Earth's diplomatic mission, demanded extraction, disappeared into human space. No one would have blamed you. Except you. Except me. Her crystalline hair chimed softly, but you stayed. You let yourself be examined by truth readers, submitted to interrogation, risked everything on my ability to prove your innocence. Why? Marcus considered the question. The honest answer had been building for months, in every lesson, every conversation, every moment of unexpected vulnerability she'd shared with him. Because you asked me to trust you, he said finally. That first day, you said trust is built, not assumed. I spent 3 months watching you build it. Every time you could have sacrificed me for political advantage, you didn't. Every time protecting me cost you something, you paid the price anyway. He paused. I stayed because leaving would have made me a liar. And I don't want to lie to you. Veyra was quiet for a long moment. Among my people, she said softly, what you just said, the declaration of unwillingness to deceive, is considered a profound commitment, almost intimate, I know. He'd learned that in his studies. I meant it that way. Her silver eyes searched his face. Marcus, you don't have to say anything. He kept his voice gentle. I'm not expecting. I need to say something. She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand. The touch was electric. Theryn's skin carried a faint charge that humans could feel. I claimed you as a political solution. A way to solve a problem that was threatening my position. I told myself it was strategy. Pragmatism. Perhaps even a small act of mercy. Her fingers intertwined with his. I was lying to myself. I knew even then that there was something different about you. The way you held yourself despite fear. The way you found humor in darkness. The way you looked at me like I was a person, not a prize to be won or a weapon to be wielded. Veyra, let me finish. Her grip tightened. I have been alone for a very long time, Marcus. Not physically, there are always servants, attendants, supplicants. But alone in a way that matters. I learned young that showing vulnerability was an invitation to exploitation. That trusting anyone fully was a risk I couldn't afford. Her crystalline hair brightened slowly, the light spreading through the strands until she seemed to glow from within. You've made me want to risk it again. To trust fully. To let someone see the parts of me I've kept hidden. She lifted her other hand, touching his face with trembling fingers. I don't know if what I feel is... I don't know the human words for it. But I know I don't want you to leave. Ever. Marcus covered her hand with his own. Then I won't. You can't promise that. The Dominion is dangerous. My position is vulnerable. There are forces that will try to destroy everything I'm building. Veyra. He said her name quietly, and she stopped. I watched my entire crew die because I wasn't able to save them. I spent 3 years in the void because I thought I didn't deserve to live when they didn't. When your people captured me, I honestly didn't care if they executed me. I had nothing left worth fighting for. He turned her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. You gave me something to fight for again. I'm not leaving. Whatever comes, whatever forces try to tear this apart, I'm staying. Not because of obligation or debt, or even gratitude. Because there's nowhere else I want to be. The bioluminescent tree above them seemed to pulse brighter. Veyra leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. The gesture, he knew, was one of absolute trust among her people. Exposing the most vulnerable point of the skull to someone they believed would never harm them. My impossible human, she whispered. What am I going to do with you? I have some ideas, he said. Most of them involve staying exactly where I am. When she laughed, it was the first genuine, unguarded laugh he'd ever heard from her. They sat together beneath the glowing tree as the night deepened around them, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. The coronation of Ascendant Matriarch Veyra Thal'shan took place 6 months later, on the anniversary of her mother's death. Marcus stood in the position of honor, directly below the crystal throne, visible to every dignitary, counselor, and citizen watching throughout the Dominion. His presence, there was deliberate, a statement Veyra had insisted upon despite the objections of her advisors. Let them see, she had said during the planning sessions. Let them see that the Dominion's future includes humans. That alliance is possible. That change is coming whether they like it or not. The ceremony was ancient and elaborate, filled with rituals whose meanings Marcus had spent months learning. The passing of symbolic objects, the recitation of oaths, the binding of new power to old traditions. Through it all, Veyra moved with absolute grace, every gesture perfect, every word resonant with authority. When the crown of the Ascendant settled onto her brow, a living construct of crystal that merged with her own crystalline hair, the assembled crowd knelt as one. All except Marcus. He remained standing as they had agreed. You do not kneel to your matriarch, human. Counselor Thys called out, her voice carrying an edge of challenge. She had survived Rethan's fall by distancing herself from his conspiracy, but she remained no ally to Veyra. Among my people, Marcus replied, his voice equally clear, an equal does not kneel to a partner. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Veyra laughed, clear, delighted, entirely inappropriate for the solemn occasion. The sound echoed through the great hall, bouncing off crystal walls that flickered with confused colors as they tried to process this unprecedented breach of protocol. The human speaks truth, she announced, still smiling. Let the records show that on this day, Marcus Cole of Earth is raised to the rank of royal consort, with all rights and privileges therein. He is bound to the throne not through submission, but through partnership. He kneels to no one because I have chosen to walk beside him, not above him. Another ripple of shock through the crowd. This is unprecedented. This began? Yes. Veyra's smile faded, replaced by steel. It is. As is my reign. As is the future I intend to build. The Dominion has thrived for 10,000 years by adapting to change while honoring tradition. I will not break with the past, but I will not be imprisoned by it either. She descended from the throne, each step precise and deliberate, until she stood before Marcus at the center of the chamber. The alliance between Theryn and Earth begins today, she said, her voice carrying to the farthest corners of the hall. Not through conquest or capitulation, but through partnership. My consort represents the first of what I hope will be many bridges between our peoples. She extended her hand, a human gesture she had learned for this moment. Marcus took it. When you first brought me before the council, he said quietly, for her ears alone, I was a political problem you chose to make personal. And now, you're a personal commitment I'm choosing to make political. He smiled. Seems only fair. Veyra's crystalline hair blazed with light, joy, love, and something like triumph all woven together. My consort speaks truth, she announced to the assembly. We began as strangers, bound by circumstance and strategy. We end as partners, bound by choice and, she paused, as if the word was unfamiliar, by love. The Theryn had no tradition of public declarations of love. Emotion was private, guarded, revealed only to those who had earned absolute trust. For an ascendant matriarch to speak the word aloud, before the full council and citizens of the Dominion, was revolutionary. Some counselors looked appalled, others confused. But many, more than Marcus had expected, looked intrigued, even hopeful. The old ways served us well, Veyra continued, but the galaxy is changing. New peoples are rising. New alliances are forming. The Dominion can either lead this change or be swept aside by it. I choose to lead. She turned back to the throne and began to ascend, still holding Marcus's hand and drawing him with her. Today begins a new era, she said as they reached the apex together. An era where strength includes compassion, where tradition embraces adaptation, where a human stands beside the matriarch not as subject or servant, but as equal. The crown on her brow pulsed with inner light, and the crystal throne behind her seemed to warm, responding to her presence. I am Veyra Thal'shan, Ascendant Matriarch of the Theryn Dominion. This is Marcus Cole, my consort and partner. Together, we will build something the galaxy has never seen before. She sat on the throne. Marcus took his place beside her, not kneeling, not standing below, but seated on a secondary platform that put them nearly at eye level. The coronation is complete, the Master of Protocol announced, his voice slightly strangled. Long live the Ascendant Matriarch. Long live the Ascendant Matriarch. The response came from thousands of voices, echoing through the crystal halls. As the formal ceremony ended, and the celebration began, Veyra leaned toward Marcus. That was terrifying, she admitted quietly. You didn't show it. I had motivation. Her silver eyes met his. I have spent my life performing for people who wanted me to fail. Today, I performed for someone who wanted me to succeed. It makes a difference. Does it help that I also want you to succeed at whatever comes next? The diplomatic reception? The formal acceptance of Earth's ambassador? The 17 urgent matters my advisors insist cannot wait? She smiled slightly. Having you beside me for all of it will help considerably. Then let's get to it. Marcus stood, offering her his hand again. Your Majesty, I thought equals didn't bow and scrape. They don't. But they do offer help when their partner needs it. He smiled. And right now, there are approximately 300 dignitaries waiting to meet the new matriarch and her scandalous human consort. Some of them probably want to kill us. Most of them definitely want to manipulate us. All of them are about to learn that they've underestimated both of us. Veyra took his hand and rose from the throne. I was her political problem, she said softly, echoing his words from so many months ago. She made me her personal one. And now we're each other's everything, Marcus finished. And the galaxy is going to have to deal with that. Together, the ascendant matriarch and her human consort descended from the crystal throne to face whatever came next, not as ruler and subject, not as patron and ward, but as partners. The Dominion had never seen anything like it. Neither had the galaxy. But they would learn.